right. Howdy, howdy. Great to be here this week. We've been talking behind the scenes about our pets because, oh my goodness, like it's hard when you have old pets and like when did they tell you that it's time? You know, we have, yeah. So Renee was just sharing about how they had their pet, like it was the day before you moved to Arizona.
It was like a couple weeks before, but it was the day we closed on our house. I mean,
it was the day you closed on your house.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard. You're making all these life changes, and we're looking at Max and he's 17 and, he's just old. We don't want to end his life early because it's like we don't want to do anything out of convenience, just because of convenience and everything. And he's not really suffering, although he does have colitis. And so his colitis flare is a little flared up right now. The vet gave us prednisone, and so we can give it to him when he's having a little bit of a flare. And I'm assuming he might have like a doggy version of Crohn's disease. And so he'll get a little bit of rectal bleeding and a little bit of like urgency. And so often we'll get up in the morning and he'll have not quite made it to the backyard. He'll like right inside the doggy door. So we've got all these like white towels and stuff on the floor inside the doggy door so that hopefully if he does it, he's going to be inside the door. But I feel like we're always constantly, cleaning up after him. Hello, John.
He needs to be a carnivore.
I tried. So here's the weird thing with Max. I tried to get him to be a carnivore and he loved the food. He didn't adapt well to the like people version of carnivore. So I ended up giving him this wild prey dog food that was all carnivore. And that's when his colitis kicked in. And I took him to the vet. And I'm convinced it has to do with how we domesticate these animals. And there's probably just like with us, we can have genetic variants that can kick in under the right circumstances or the wrong circumstances. I think that may be the same thing. The vet said that there are some dogs that do get colitis when they have a lot of protein in their diet. And he was just lucky to be one of those. But we never did put him back on like grains. So we put him back on a diet that had, kind of a mixture of the meat and like sweet potato and some veg and everything. But it was like for a sensitive stomach. And, but yeah, he's had to be on a lot of prednisone.
Oh,
yeah. For the inflammation, because he'll get rectal bleeding. So, hello, how are we doing? We're doing good. I am packing. I'm crazy packing because we have, the 17th is when we close escrow on this house and we get to stay for a little while. And there's like maybe 4 or 5 days that we get to stay here, but we close escrow on the other house on the 18th. And so starting the 18th is when we're going to be starting to move all our stuff over.
Yay.
Yeah. And so
it's exciting. It's real.
It's real. And it's a little bit, it's bittersweet, right? Because
always is.
Yeah, we've been at this house for almost 14 years and we do love our neighborhood and we're really comfortable here and we're going to out in the country, this big piece of land with this funky, crazy house that needs who knows what as far as design changes.
Moving to the country was the best thing we ever did. And believe me, I get it. We raised our kids in our house in Hawaii that we left. And so I cried when I left because that was where I raised my kids.
Yeah.
But I would not go back to living in my neighborhood. I mean, if any of my neighbors are watching, loved you guys, but I would never go back because I have privacy out here.
Yeah, I've never lived in the country. I've never lived like in the middle of a city, but I've always lived in the suburbs. And just in, your normal suburban neighborhood where your neighbors, you're surrounded by neighbors. This is going to be brand new for me. Being out in the country.
I think you'll enjoy the country. I think you will. I grew up in a subdivision, and then when I got married, we moved into his grandmother, what had been his grandmother's house, but the family had land there, and he still lives in that house. But um, at first, it was really difficult getting accustomed to it because I mean, at night it just got like it was black, and you could actually see the
Yeah,
stars
I'm
and
looking forward to
everything.
seeing the stars.
Yeah, and so it was
Yeah.
but then once I got accustomed to it, I mean, I loved the privacy, the
Awesome.
freedom. It was great. And then, now I live in a subdivision again. Oh, living in an apartment was the worst. I lived in an apartment for a year and I was heart
Yeah.
sick. It was terrible. It was such culture shock for me. And
Yeah.
then I moved into this place, which I've been here for, I guess, 21 years now. So in
Wow.
this little townhouse,
Wow.
but I miss the country. And it's funny though, because there's subdivisions like all around him now. And what was his parents' house and then his house,
Yeah.
and then I think there's like 15 acres, something like that,
Well, we're
16
having
acres.
ours is just under 28 acres, but and it's an estate sale, and the one son lives on the adjacent 5 acres that used to be part of the acreage of his parents. And
Nice.
Mhm.
what I've been told is that he's going to be moving soon. So we're really hoping to buy
Oh,
his property too. So we will see. So KG says, I live in New York State. Awesome. What part of New York State? It is probably really cold there. Does dog eat any fat with the meat? Um, Not really. So I know that dogs can't handle the amount of fat that we can handle. They don't have the same pancreatic enzymes that we have. And so I just kind of read up on it, and they said they got to do lower fat. And that's actually really historically accurate too, because I know I've read about, I think it's some of the tribes, the native tribes like the Inuits and the different, tribes that hunt and do a lot of hunting, they would save the lean meat for the dogs
yeah.
because dogs need to have the lean meat, and they didn't want the lean meat. They need the fatty meat, but the dogs would do the lean meat. So you
Yeah.
have to be super careful and not give your dog high fat.
We fed our dogs raw carnivore before we moved here. When we made the move from Hawaii to Arizona, I couldn't figure out how to keep up the raw for that period of time. So we put them back they're on a carnivore kibble now. It's kind of like yours, Lynn.
Yeah.
It's mostly meat and it has no grains, but it does have some sweet potatoes and some other
Yeah.
stuff in it, that a little bit of other stuff. And they do really well on it. But yeah, we didn't get them any fat either. We bought from a pet co-op that actually, you could buy the meat that wasn't human grade. For some reason it didn't make the human grade, so we would just grind it up. But we did not do fat either. The most fat that they got from it was anything that was around the kidneys or the heart or any of that.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah,
wasn't a
you
lot.
definitely have to be careful. So awesome. Well, we should probably get going. It's been a little while. I'll do a little intro on what we're doing, but it's been a little while since we've actually introduced ourselves. So I know we've got some new people in the chat, and so we are going through this textbook. This is a medical textbook. It's called Ketogenic: The Science of Therapeutic Carbohydrate Restriction in Human Health. It is a medical textbook, and it is, as we call it, meaty. So it's not a book. It's not a book club. We don't read ahead. We actually read and discuss as we go. And we are on chapter 3, the endocrine chapter. We have been on the section talking about type 1 diabetes. And so we're going to be picking up on where we left off from there. And then the next section is going to be jumping into, I think, polycystic ovarian syndrome and infertility. But let's just do a really quick intro for anybody who doesn't know who we are. So my name is Lynn. My YouTube channel, hopefully if you're here, you know it, it's Midlife Carnivore. And I am a retired nurse. I was a gastroenterology hepatology nurse. And before that, I worked in the hospital in a step-down unit from the ICU. And I had to retire from nursing because I developed a very, very severe case of mast cell activation syndrome. I also used to be very morbidly obese. I was topped out probably somewhere around 360 pounds. And I have lost most of that extra weight. I still have a little bit left to go, but I had really severe symptoms. I was considered totally disabled, and I found healing through a carnivore diet. So that's my story. And I am now on the Healing Humanity leadership team. I work and I'm in the documentary that is coming out soon. So that's a little blurb on me. You want to go ahead and introduce yourself, Carrie?
Sure. My name is Carrie. I basically started out, I guess you could say, like low carb, well, paleo first and evolved into low carb, but it was because I wanted to avoid diabetes. So it wasn't like I had a specific health issue that I was trying to get rid of or to heal, but just that I knew what I didn't want because of my mother's experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So I am pretty much carnivore. I mean, once in a blue moon, I'll have some veg, and I will tell you my birthday is coming up. So I will probably be going to Steak and Shake and having what I think is going to be my annual birthday treat of Steak and Shake fries. They cook with tallow. So I will let
So is
myself.
this a big birthday coming up?
It is. It's my 60th. It'll be my 60th birthday. Yeah, on the 1st of March.
Wonderful. I know you're a couple of years ahead of me. I'm turning 58 in April.
So it's funny because I have known, obviously, I know how old I am, but the other day I woke up and I was just like, wow, I'm getting ready to turn 60. How did that happen? You know, it's like
wise.
It is. It's just it is a little bit of a shock. I'm not depressed over it or anything, but and speaking of like depression or whatever, but I also used to suffer quite a bit with anxiety, and I noticed that the more fat I eat, and I can tell like if I need to adjust my fat, it's like I do better on higher fat.
Yeah.
And so if my fat intake gets a little too low, I can tell a difference just in my frame of mind and my mood. So when I am, strict carnivore, which is most of the time, but when I have that higher fat intake, man, it's like I'm cool as a cucumber. Nothing bothers me. It's amazing. So if anybody out there who's struggling with anxiety, I really recommend that you give that a try. Yeah. For sure.
Excellent. All right, Renee.
I actually am like Lynn. I was retired. I had to medically retire. I was director of patient care at a hospital in Hawaii, and I've been a nurse for over 20 years. And I got a disease called chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy, which is an autoimmune neuropathy. I was losing my ability to walk. I was using a cane. I was getting chemo and biological agents, and nothing was working. And my pain was out of control. And I suffered from depression, anxiety, which was way before that disease. And I also was diagnosed with idiopathic gastroparesis back in 2010. So I had that for a long time. And tried carnivore as a Hail Mary and was in remission in 8 months. And I haven't had chemo since the day I started. Actually, I take it back. My anniversary for 2 years is coming up on March 20th.
Wow,
and,
good.
My last chemo treatment was the first week of April because I had just been fresh into carnivore, and I haven't had it since. I'm off all meds.
Wow.
And I am working full-time as a nurse coach for Virta Health and doing coaching to teach other people about the healing powers of ketogenic diets. So our mission at Virta Health is to reverse metabolic disease in 1 billion people.
Love it.
What we're doing.
You're doing your part.
We're well on our way. Hopefully it'll escalate, especially now that the dietary guidelines have changed and
yes,
they're headed in the right direction.
They
so
are.
That's good. So awesome. Good. Well, if you guys are ready to jump in, we are on page 151. I didn't read last week, so maybe I'll read this week. Maybe I'll start going. So this section is called Therapeutic Carbohydrate Restriction Dietary Intervention. Okay. So, and then again, this is in the context of type 1 diabetes. So therapeutic carbohydrate restriction is about the reduction of carbohydrates to a level that will enable someone with type 1 diabetes to have normal glucose concentrations. A good place to start may be around 70 to 90 grams of carbohydrates per day. Now, keep in mind, we are all carnivores, so we eat 0, but this is a ketogenic textbook. So it's going to probably recommend more carbs than we eat. So a typical therapeutic carbohydrate restriction diet will importantly be from sources of food that are real and unprocessed. It is well known that ultra-processed food is directly harmful to health, and this should be discouraged in all diets. The object of dietary choices in type 1 diabetes is to maximize the health gain from unprocessed food, enable near physiological concentrations of blood glucose, and reduction of hypoglycemic episodes. Real foods in a typical therapeutic carbohydrate restriction diet will be leafy vegetables, ideally seasonal, locally sourced, and organic. Tree nuts, reduce or avoid peanuts and cashews. Berry fruits in small amounts, full fat dairy products, eggs, all meat with fatty cuts preferable, all fish, cooking oils not derived from seeds and that is cold pressed rather than processed industrially with solvents. This is a very low cholesterol diet. I'm assuming that's what that means. There's a very low carbohydrate diet or ketogenic diet, which is less than 50 grams carbs per day. A higher carbohydrate diet in therapeutic carbohydrate restriction would include more root vegetables, pulses. What are pulses? And possibly limited grains. Do you guys know what pulses are?
I'll Google
No.
it.
I think I did know at one time, but I'm ashamed to say I don't know.
I feel like this came
legumes.
up. What is it? Legumes?
Yeah, it's
Oh, beans?
beans.
Beans
It says that legumes are plants in the pea family that produce pods, which are the edible seeds, pulses. So the pulses are the edible part of a legume.
Okay.
Who knew?
Who knew? Well, obviously Neville
Somebody in the chat did.
Someone in the chat knew. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, Neville Wellington, who wrote this, I think is from South Africa. So they probably call it pulses there. Who knows?
Oh, that's a good point. Regional or,
Yeah.
varying on where you live in the world. Like petrol is gas, for example.
Yeah, exactly. So, and even in Canada, they use some weird terms for things. Of course, a hat is a toque, and like a couch or a sofa, they call them Chesterfields.
Yeah,
I've heard that.
Yeah, that's so.
We're reading a book, and we listen to a book at night when we're getting rid of our screens and we're just kind of winding down.
Yeah.
And we're listening to a book that called Couches Chesterfields. And I'm like, what the heck is that? I had to Google it because I'm like, I have never heard that word before.
I hadn't heard it. Well, I heard it in the late 80s for the first time when I went to school up in Canada, and they were calling the couches Chesterfields. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Chesterfield, that sounds like a town.
It does. It probably is a town. Maybe that's a place where they make couches.
Yes. Who knows? Maybe that's where they were originally made.
Because, people here in the South call refrigerators Frigidaires. That was like the original brand of a refrigerator.
Yeah.
Was the Frigidaire, but all refrigerators in the South are Frigidaires, just like all soda, dark soda is Coke.
Oh, it's Coke.
In the South, everybody, you just say, I'll have a Coke, and it could mean a Pepsi or a root beer or whatever, but it's just whatever a dark soda is.
Oh, interesting. Isn't that funny? Like how we all grow up in the same country, but we don't call things. It was pop where I grew up. I mean, in Colorado, we call it pop.
Yeah. And in the West Coast, it's always soda.
Yeah.
So interesting. Okay. All right. Side note here. This is why it takes us forever to get through this book.
But it's more fun this way.
It's more fun this way. I know. Okay. So an often overlooked part of all dietary recommendations is enjoyment. Okay. This is going to be interesting because I definitely have my views on this. The perception of therapeutic carbohydrate restricted diets as being bland and unsustainable is outdated and represents individual clinician bias and possibly their own personal behaviors around food rather than any evidence-based assessment. There are thousands of recipes that suit a therapeutic carbohydrate restriction diet that is healthy, visually appealing, and highly palatable. All right, so we're all carnivores, so we don't have a colorful plate. No. And I know that there's a lot of people who want to have a colorful plate. Where are you guys at with like your need for color on your plate?
No, personally, I don't. It doesn't matter. I will say that just based on like what I've heard from other people, like or like my daughter, for example, she is a cook. She loves to make dishes and stuff. So I think for somebody like her, because she is a foodie. Yeah. So I think some of the keto or carnivore, whatever recipes, like what Chris Cooking Nashville does. I
Mhm.
don't have the patience to do stuff like that,
I don't either.
Nope.
but she can cook like that. And so I think for people like her, and especially maybe if they're transitioning, to help them kind of ease over that hump, so to speak, I think that it can be a good thing, or as an occasional treat, or like if you're going to, like, for example, I would love for somebody to make the mashed potatoes version, that Chris Cooking Nashville does, which is
I
not
tried
potato.
it. I
Did
tried
you?
it. It was a dismal disaster when I tried it. Other people have tried it and have been doing and did well. I
Yeah.
actually met him at Low Carb for Better Health, and I
Uh-huh.
told him how I botched his recipe, and he was so sweet about it. He
Yeah.
It's
he
He
okay.
said,
seems like a really cool guy. I've never met him, but
I can't even make Dr. Kiltz's ice cream, so I don't want to talk. Like, I'll tell you what, carnivore was the biggest blessing. Now, let me tell you, I am a cook. Like, I love to bake. I love to cook. I've always been in the kitchen. And when I became carnivore, my husband and I made a deal. I don't ever go in the kitchen except to clean. He cooks now almost exclusively because he does meat very well.
yeah.
And
Mhm.
it's so easy to throw chicken in the air fryer or to throw a steak in the air fryer. And I don't have to cook anymore. I don't have to make sides. I don't have to make veggies. We have people come over and I'm like, oh my God, I actually have to cook.
No
Yeah.
chopping, no
Yeah. I mean,
seasoning.
it's amazing.
I know. Same here. I
It
don't
is.
really
It's
like,
easy, and I'm lazy about, especially like because it's just me.
yeah.
I don't even have the cat anymore, so I mean, it's just me, myself, and I. So the least work. I mean, I'm not going to prepare a big meal or
Right.
go through a lot of work for just something that I'm going to eat. I'm too lazy. It's not a priority for me.
Yeah.
So I do meal prep, like burger patties, hard boiled eggs. I'll cook up some bacon, and then I also buy some of the pre cooked bacon as well. I found a good. It's not 100% pure, but it's much better than eating junk.
Yeah.
And because some days I'll be honest, like today is one of them. Honestly, I'm just exhausted. Work, depending on what I'm working on, can just really wear me out, and I don't even feel like cooking anything. So for me, carnivore is great because I can do all that meal prep, and I can still, what is it? Oh, most studies indicate you need to eat rainbows.
That's what, I mean, I was a gastroenterology nurse, and that's what
Yep.
I used to teach people. And it's amazing how the patients would tell me, I eat that stuff and I feel worse. And it never really even dawned on me that it
Right.
was the veg and all the fiber and everything. And now I didn't know, I never knew about anti-nutrients, that
Mhm.
plants use
Right.
toxins. And man, there's so much you just don't learn in nursing school, right?
No. I
Yeah.
have to tell on myself though today.
Okay.
We
Okay.
went to Wild Buffalo Wings for lunch and I had a hamburger without the bun, which was great. But I didn't tell her not to bring the fries because they fry in tallow too. And I was like, you know what? I haven't had French fry in almost 2 years. And I probably ate like 5 or 6 fries.
Well, how did
And
that sit?
oh no, I haven't had gastroparesis symptoms in almost 2 years, and it was like instant. My stomach
Yeah.
hurt, and I was like, nope. There is a reason why. I told my husband they tasted great, but there's a reason why I don't eat them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Kinda
hey,
like with me and pistachios, I can't do those.
you guys don't know Liz. So this is her new name for her channel. Um,
Oh,
you gotta watch her. Absolutely love Liz. And she is like the feisty, snarky science chick. And she's
I
awesome.
love it.
Yeah, she's come on Healing Humanity Life, a couple times as an expert. So let's see, don't feel bad after 30 years in the medical and pharmaceutical industry. I believe that rainbow crap too. Yes, exactly. Because that's what we're taught, right? And then we get sick. Thanks. No, and it's true. It's true, Liz. I love your channel. And I love the snark and the sense of humor. It's like life's too short not to have a sense of humor.
Right.
But yeah, it's like we tried to eat the right way, right? And then you get so sick. So when it comes to this whole thing about like the variety that they talk about in this textbook and having a little variety, I think it depends on how sick you are. And some people can
Mhm.
handle a little bit, not that you need it, carbs are not needed. there's no carb that you absolutely need to have it in your body. So, but some people just can't handle it. I'm one of those. So,
Okay,
okay.
I subscribed to her channel so I don't lose it.
Oh yeah, definitely. So, okay. So with all chronic diseases, there is a big learning curve when starting out on a therapeutic carbohydrate restricted lifestyle. Clinician support and simple messaging can go a long way towards successful dietary intervention and clinical outcomes. Below are some guides to help patients with this lifestyle. All right, so number one, it is important that all patients understand which food contains carbohydrates so that when they reduce their carbohydrate intakes, they understand how much to match insulin doses to the reduced carbohydrate intakes. In most cases, the basal insulin regimen may be maintained, but the bolus doses will need to be replaced. And I know last week we went over the studies that they did on type 1 diabetics and how they actually saw results even when they actually kept their carbohydrates kind of high from our perspective. So we're waiting to see, are there going to be studies done where they actually do a carnivore diet? Because I know that there are type 1 diabetics that can really like reduce their insulin levels down to not much at all.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I've
5
seen several
each day.
testimonials.
Mhm.
And like there was one guy, I mentioned him before. I wish I need to just look it up so that I could have it as a reference. But this guy, it was fascinating because like he ate like 80% fat
Yeah.
and just like 20% protein. And he said it did wonders for not only, I believe he suffered with, I believe he had type 1 diabetes, but he also had like just like anxiety issues and some mental issues that he was dealing with, and that it just like totally transformed him. But he has to keep his fat content like extremely high.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just a wonderful thing that is available where it's not, he doesn't have to just be on lots and lots of drugs.
Right.
I mean, I would much rather change what I eat personally.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All right. So number 2, monitoring blood glucose concentrations is extremely important and at a minimum should be performed pre and post meals. Ideally, if patients can afford it, patients should use CGM devices, which is a continuous glucose monitor, but they may still need to record pre and post meal concentrations to ensure that insulin doses are correct and that meals eaten are not high in carbohydrates, producing postprandial blood glucose concentrations. And postprandial means after meals. So number 3, patients should try to stick to a maximum of 3 meals a day and minimize or stop snacking between meals. This allows glucose and insulin concentrations to reduce and stabilize. The lower blood insulin concentrations will allow adipose tissue lipolysis, which means the breakdown of fatty tissue, increasing energy utilization from fat oxidation. Unfortunately, when snacking, patients tend not to dose with insulin for the snack, which makes it difficult to control blood glucose concentrations. All right, 4, treat protein with insulin. As protein conversion to glucose takes longer, patients may find that glucose concentrations spike later after a protein meal. This may require a prolonged bolus on a pump or a longer acting bolus insulin, for example, Humulin R. Number 5, use slow acting carbohydrates to counteract exercise associated hypoglycemia. So, for example, superstarch. Exercise can induce a late hypoglycemic event. So, to prevent this, may require some slow release complex carbohydrates to counteract the late dip. And I know for endurance athletes, even like non-diabetic endurance athletes often will give themselves some carbohydrates when they are doing their, whatever they're doing, their marathons or whatever. Let's see. So Andy says, I want to try carnivore, but I'm afraid after dumping electrolytes on a low carb keto diet. Dr. Finney from Verta Health talks about this, but I was never able to get my salt amount right. Renee, you want to comment on that one?
First off, Dr. Finney is like one of our gods. He's absolutely amazing. And without him, we wouldn't have Verta Health because he's one of our founders. But yeah, when there's like, I explain it to people when you go to ketogenic or carnivore, you reduce the inflammation in your body. But when you reduce inflammation in your body, you have to lose that fluid that the inflammation holds. And so somehow that has to come out, which goes out through the kidneys. And salt, every nurse knows salt follows water. So when you get rid of all that fluid, all of the salt follows. So yeah, you have that keto flu is not real. It's not a flu. It's an electrolyte imbalance. So we really highly recommend people to use electrolytes like 2 or 3 times a day if you have to. It's not going to hurt, it's not going to hurt anything. I still use electrolytes every single day. I start my morning off with electrolytes. But, and the other thing I tell people is if you have a jar of pickles, pickle juice is crazy good for electrolyte imbalances. I don't know what it is about that, but it works almost sometimes better than that. And so just having some, and every cup of water you drink, just make sure there's some salt in it. It doesn't have to be an electrolyte mix. Just make sure there's salt.
Solely water is a good option too. And that's something, if you can't afford to buy these crazy expensive electrolyte packets, you can make solely water. And there's like YouTube videos on how to do it. It's super, super simple. And that's a really concentrated form.
Right. But it only lasts a couple weeks. Like if you can make it through that couple of weeks and just keep giving yourself as much electrolytes and support those electrolytes as much as you can, it'll go away. Like I think the longest I've ever had anybody complain about it was up to a month. And I don't think that they were supplementing enough salt. Like, because people are so scared of salt. People come to us and their doctors have told them, do not put salt on your food and stay away from salt. And salt causes all this stuff. Salt is essential for us. And Lynn knows this too. Like our body does such a great job of controlling its salt that if you are healthy, you're not going to oversalt your blood.
You're not going to oversalt.
Like our body will get rid of whatever it doesn't.
Yeah. She said she did like 3 to 5 grams a day. So maybe I did more than that. At the beginning, I know that the first time I did carnivore, which was several years before, the second time I didn't add the electrolytes and I did end up having problems. And then the second time I went crazy with the electrolytes, it did better. So it will pass. It definitely will pass, but maybe 5 grams is not enough. Maybe you need more like 7. A lot of people say try to do 7. So they tried for 10 months. Wow. So maybe some joining a community might be helpful. Yeah. And that way, you can get some additional guidance and, you can join a free community if you want. You can join like Healing Humanity Life, which is my community, and, get our Zoom calls but definitely getting a community or getting Coach Lisa Picker is great. You can go to Renee, sign up with Verta Health, but maybe get some more specialized advice on that. Yeah.
I've never heard it last that long. I mean, there could be something metabolically going on too that, that we don't know about.
Yeah, I would definitely agree because there's a normal adaptation phase. And so if you're still having symptoms past that adaptation phase, I would definitely think it needs investigating as far as what else might be going on. And
maybe seeing a functional medicine doctor that, because most functional medicine doctors do keto, like that is what their diets are. So I would maybe look for a carnivore or keto doctor too, and see if they have a little bit of added suggestions.
It could be histamines. I mean, that's my thing that I'm always reminding people of is that you can be carnivore, you can have histamine issues, which a lot of people have, and you can still be having histamine problems on a carnivore diet. Other people too can have oxalate dumping. That can be a big problem that can last years. There's also half the population has the MTHFR variant, which means that your homocysteine pathways aren't working properly. So that's going to promote inflammation and you may not be detoxing very well. So there's all these factors where working with somebody that can help you guide you through it can be helpful. Some people have mycotoxin exposure. Some people have heavy metal issues. I mean, there's a myriad. It's not just diet. We've been exposed to so many toxins through the course of our lives. It's, it's amazing.
She says that she tried it back in 17 and 18. And you're right. There's a lot more help now. There's a lot more support now.
There is.
We're not alone on an island anymore.
Oh yeah, the carnivore community is
Right.
huge now. Yeah, definitely. And if you follow Caring Man, Homestead How, which is who I'm associated with Healing Humanity, he's got his community as well. And, we've got Q&As and all sorts of stuff going on. So there's definitely support out there. Don't try to do it alone. Yeah. So John says, my carb limit is 20 grams. The rest is fat and red meat. I'm 13 months. Awesome. Very good. That's his daily eating plan. Yeah. I had to go zero carb. I was just too much of an addict. Let's see. Liz says, hey, speaking of studies, I did a live with Coach Steven, and he went over the statin study showing it seems to be causing diabetes. The media is still using that study to promote statins still.
Yes, they do.
Statins are terrible for your blood sugar.
And I'm also convinced that they cause dementia and, or Alzheimer's. I'm convinced of it because there's been such an increase ever since people started taking statins. And I know what they did to my mother. And when I asked my dad, has she started taking something new? And then come to find out, she had been prescribed it was a generic of one of them. But anyway, I recognized it was like a torvastatin or something,
Yeah, that's a really common one.
Yeah. And so I just sort of, I was a jerk about it kind of, but I was like, just take it out and take it away, just throw it away, take it and dispose of it. She doesn't need to take it anymore. And sure enough, that was what was causing her problem.
Yeah.
Statins are terrible. Terrible.
Thomas, he's one of our members.
Hi, Thomas.
Got off of a call with him a little while ago. All right. So let's see. Yes. Together strong, sharing experience, strength, and hope. Yes, absolutely. Live, love, heal, for goodness sake. Eat the meat. Absolutely.
Eat the meat. Forget the pudding. Eat your meat, y'all.
All righty. So let's see. So this says, let's see. Next one was 6. Ensure that patients are willing to eat more fat. That's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Reduce carbohydrates, they will need to increase healthy fat intakes. If they do not, they will find that they become hungry and will be tempted to snack more, which will affect glucose concentrations abnormally. Yes, and fat is one of those things that doesn't spike your blood sugar. Although I did see a study that was done that showed that there can be, if you eat enough fat, can be a kind of very delayed small spike in blood sugar. But it's very small. And it was also after eating a lot of fat. So I think we still have some things to learn about, and probably more study is needed. Yeah. Let's see. Statins and Satan seem pretty close.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Not much of a difference, huh?
Yep, exactly. Okay. So number 7, follow a low carbohydrate, high fat lifestyle. Following a low carbohydrate, high fat lifestyle may induce nutritional ketosis. Well, if you get your carbs low enough, it should. This is often a target for many patients, but it is important for patients to understand the concentration of ketones they can achieve safely. For this reason, it would be advisable to have a ketone meter to measure the concentration of ketones, which is beta hydroxybutyrate, in their blood. Acceptable concentrations range from 0.5 millimoles per liter to 3 millimoles per liter. Ketone meters are also helpful when patients are unwell and may even develop euglycemic diabetic ketoacidosis, an important condition to be aware of. And that's particularly for type 1 diabetics.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So you got to be really watching it when you're sick. So number 8, consider using insulin pumps if it is affordable. Many pumps now have feedback loops that can prevent patients from overdosing on insulin and have a suspend function if glucose concentrations are reducing and the pump senses that hypoglycemia may ensue. Number 9, patients are advised to plan some time out, for example, a weekend where they can concentrate on a low carbohydrate diet and see the effects on their glucose concentrations and insulin doses. At these times, it is incredibly helpful to keep a diary of readings, food intake, and insulin doses. And number 10, beware of keto-related hypoglycemic unawareness. This is when many patients, including non-therapeutic carbohydrate restriction type 1 patients, develop unawareness of low glucose concentrations due to frequent hypoglycemic episodes. This can lead them to losing the compensatory mechanism and symptoms that warn them that they are going too low, such as sweating, dizziness, tachycardia, aggressiveness, etc. In effect, this leads them to have severe hypoglycemic episodes without initially being aware of them. And by the time they or others realize they are low, they may already be in a coma and will need outside help. Some patients who are in nutritional ketosis may develop hypoglycemic unawareness, which may have serious effects. Be aware that these patients will have to monitor their more frequently, and if possible, should use a CGM. So that's actually really, I think, important, especially if you're coaching people. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
when do you have type 1 diabetics, Renee, that you work with? I would imagine that it would be important to tell them to check in on your blood sugar. Don't just stop testing it. They have to keep testing it, right? I mean, they're type 1 diabetics. So, but I've definitely talked to people who are type 2 diabetics who they stop having symptoms of hypoglycemia. And I mean, they don't start having symptoms until their blood sugar is really low. And that could definitely be dangerous. All right, a little bit left here and then I'll pass it on. So number 11, encourage patients to be compassionate towards themselves. They need to listen to their bodies, listen to their mind, and realize that they will need to take their time to develop the learning, the skills, and the confidence to control their blood glucose concentrations. Encourage them and celebrate small successes with them. Remind them to be kind to themselves even when things don't go well. Help them to be part of a community, which is what we're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Including other patients, their families, and their team of healthcare providers. All right. Someone else ready to read?
Yeah, I don't mind.
Okay, good.
Guiding the patient. Unless patients are in DKA at diagnosis, it is possible to treat patients at an outpatient level. This may be the best opportunity to introduce the concepts of therapeutic carbohydrate restriction and the careful use of insulin. People might be at any stage of their diabetes journey, some with newly diagnosed, others will have complications, and some are potentially advanced. Others will be at a stage where chronic hyperinsulinemia, sorry, I botched that, peripherally administered insulin has led to type 2 insulin resistant pattern, adding comorbidity to type 1 diabetes. This will guide the clinician in recommending the amount of carbohydrate restriction and the timing of the transition, immediate, weeks, or months. However, the technique of transitioning to a lowered carbohydrate or even a ketogenic diet is familiar to clinicians. It applies to pumps or pens and follows existing teaching. Firstly, adjust the basal insulin dose until the patient achieves fasting normal glycemia. Then count the carbohydrates and use the required bolus insulin dose with meals. The only addition to this practice is to count protein and add a bolus dose for protein, possibly at a delayed timing, periprandially. Dietary education is hampered by current guidelines, which have been slow to adapt to research findings and present a confusing message to people needing appropriate dietary information. Clinical knowledge tends to favor guideline recommendations, which have become a poor information source for patients and clinicians. It is important, therefore, to accurately assess the needs of someone wanting to transition to a therapeutic carbohydrate restricted diet. What is their motivation? How determined are they to succeed? What are the barriers to success, and how can they be negotiated? What does success look like for a patient? What personal and other resources do they have? Is it likely to be appropriate to plan a series of incremental steps towards a goal and recognize when those milestones are achieved? This is based on the GRIN, goals, resource, increments, noticing model of motivation to bring about change. It is necessary to understand the types of macronutrients and the effects they have on metabolism and how insulin fits into this. This step might be challenging for a patient who finds it difficult to learn concepts and relies on word of mouth and popular articles and advertising for their information. But managing type 1 diabetes is mostly a practical skill, and a simple preservative diet sheet prescriptive diet sheet with recipes suited to the patient's budget will help a great deal.
Okay, cool.
Mhm.
I don't know if there's anything we want to say there.
Well, I mean, this is where coaching comes in, right?
Yep.
You know, where somebody, you know, a coach can help with drilling down to these aspects of what's, you know, where's the motivation, what are the obstacles, how much family support do they have, how slow do they need to transition over into this type of a diet, and you know, so that's where, you know, it's important to have good coaching.
Coaching and the community again. Of course, now I think society is starting to become more accepting of low carb diets, even the keto diet, and even carnivore. I believe it's not, there's not a stigma with it or an oddity to the extent that it used to be. So,
Yeah.
but
A
still,
lot of people are more aware of it.
yeah. So having said that, though, I mean, the community is important because you all have a common goal and you're working on, you know, toward the same objective. So you might meet somebody that has some of the same challenges, like especially if you have, like my poor daughter. I mean, my grandson kind of hampers her because, you know, he's tall and very slim and very active, and so like he can eat anything he wants. And so, you know, it's tempting when people, if you're responsible for yourself, but he's, you know, now he works, he has his own money, he buys his own food, you know what I'm saying? And so when people have stuff that's around, and you know, it kind of is sabotaging. But if you can talk with somebody who's been going through some similar challenges, it just helps you to
Does
get
help.
through it because that person understands you and what you're going through.
Yeah, definitely. So we have a question from Liz. How often do you guys hear people indicating they're afraid of ketogenic diets because they mix up being in ketosis versus
Yep.
ketoacidosis? I'm hearing this a lot lately and have to explain.
We had that conversation last
We
week.
had that conversation last week, and
Yeah.
you were just talking about how you were, when you were working in the ER, right? Didn't you say that there were doctors that didn't even understand the difference?
Still to this day, I deal with people that are in the medical field that don't understand the difference between, they're like, oh my gosh, what are you doing that for? You don't want to be in ketosis. I'm like, no, I don't want to be DKA, which I'm not type 1 diabetic, so I'm not going to be a DKAer. But
Right.
yeah, it's amazing how and doctors are some of the worst at getting it
I
mixed up.
understand lay people having lack of knowledge about the difference, but medical people in the medical profession, that's a little scary,
Yes, it is.
you know, and it just goes to show that the nutritional education that they get is so inadequate.
Yeah.
But you know what, though? Okay, I get that the nutritional information, but we're talking about just how the body works, though. So it's like you would think they would still know better, because even if you don't think about the nutritional aspect, it's your body's mechanics, like how it reacts.
Metabolically, we should learn that when we go through metabolic training.
Right.
Mhm.
You'd think that they would learn the Randall cycle and that they would understand, you know, hopefully to some degree, people having some degree of metabolic flexibility where, you know, your body can switch back and forth between ketones and glucose. And,
Mhm.
but yeah, I don't know. I think that doctors get stuck in their world.
Right.
And they're so busy and they just don't branch out. They're like, yeah. Like that doc that told me iodine is
Oh
toxic.
my
Oh, wow. Gee, then how are we all alive?
I know, because every cell in your body needs it.
Oh, iodine's essential.
Yeah.
I can say that supplemental iodine is higher in histamine. And so I know for myself, like when I was trying to supplement iodine with Lugol's, the solution, my throat
Mhm.
would swell.
Oh,
Yeah, but I could do the iodoral tablets, and
Oh.
I did better with those. Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
I put Lugol's inside of a little cellulose capsule and swallow it because I have such an intense reaction to that flavor that I can't even mix it with coffee, or I can't. I just put it in like a little capsule and I take it as a pill.
Yeah, it does not taste good.
No.
Absolutely. The doctor worship needs to stop. Yes, you're right. Most of the nurses I know run circles around the doctors. Well, we know the nurses run the hospital, right?
They do.
Right?
Oh, yes.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah. And so, yes, we know that you want to put the full name of that. That's what you use for your thyroid support, right? I know it's nascent. I know there's
I've heard of that.
yeah, yeah. I was gonna look into that because I know that I've been doing the iodoral, and my naturopathic doctor has me on it. I was able to get off of my thyroid medication, but I
Mm.
truly believe that like I was diagnosed based on symptoms back in like 2013 and put on levothyroxine. And
Mhm.
I never felt better with it, and I think that the symptoms I was having were my mast cell activation syndrome symptoms and wasn't really thyroid. There's a lot of crossover
Mhm.
symptoms. Yeah. So, all right, Carrie, you wanna read the last part? We can finish this section.
Monitoring, right? We're on monitoring.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. A clinician should provide patients with a glucometer and a continuous glucose meter, CGM. That sentence sounded weird. Let me start over. A clinician should provide patients with a glucometer and a continuous glucose meter, CGM, is preferable to a finger prick glucometer. Yeah. Learning is more rapid, and there is an element of safety during the transition when trends of glucose can be visualized and alarms set if available. Finger prick meters should be made available also for calibration of CGMs and for sensor failure. Some countries require finger prick tests to be carried out in motor vehicles in order to comply with driving laws.
Wow.
Blood ketone meters are an essential part of type 1 diabetes management, whether on a therapeutic carbohydrate restricted diet or not. Nutritional ketosis is not a risk factor for diabetic ketoacidosis, but people with type 1 diabetes, however it is managed, are still at risk of DKA. It is important for the patient to regularly test blood ketone concentrations in the transition to a therapeutic carbohydrate restricted diet in order to get the ketone concentrations that are normal for them. Clinical experience with 120 individuals with type 1 diabetes on a ketogenic diet suggests that 75% fall in the range of 0.6 to 1.5 millimoles per liter, 3.5 to 8.7 milligrams per deciliter. This will aid clinicians to care for patients at those times when DKA might be more likely, such as during severe infection. HbA1c is still widely used as a marker for medium-term control. With the increasing use of CGMs, time in range, TIR, is becoming a useful marker. The ranges for TIR are typically set between 4 millimoles per liter and 10 millimoles per liter, and 72 to 180 milligrams per deciliter. The achievement percentage changes with age, with those under 25 years old being set a lower target, but 70% TIR is considered a good level of control for adults. The TIR.
Could we go back over that? I'm not really
Sure.
understanding what that means.
Okay, let's see. Time in range is becoming a useful marker. The ranges for time in range are typically set between 4 millimoles per liter.
This is what was
So
confusing
it's
for me.
talking about ketones, and the goal of the ketones is to keep 70% of the time in range, which would be 0.6 to 1.5. But they have it set, the ranges for TIR are set between 4 and 10,
That was what was confusing. Why is it set so high?
But you wouldn't want to be in the 4 to 10, right?
Right. That's why I'm confused.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Because you really like, I know personally, like our goal should be 0.5 to 3. You don't really ever want to get above 0.3 because then you're either under eating or you're type 1 diabetic headed towards a bad range.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying
I'm
now.
really confused by this. Like, why would you want to set the range at 4 to 10?
Because that's above the okay, let me go back here. Okay, in order to get the ketone concentrations that are normal for them, and then they did a clinical experience with 120 individuals, and on a ketogenic diet suggests that 75% fall in the range of 0.6 to 1.5 millimoles per liter.
Okay.
So then and then going down to this, that's way above.
Oh, okay. So my question is, we're talking about ketones when we're talking about the 0.6 to 1.5. I think we switched to blood glucose levels.
Oh, because it's talking about HbA1c is still what? Oh, so it's
because it says the ranges for TIR are typically set between 4 mmol.
That should have been a separate paragraph.
Right, because you see that in parentheses, it's 72 to 180, which is what our goal would be for blood glucoses.
Yes.
So I think that they transitioned from ketones to blood glucose and didn't tell you that they did that, and there was nothing to indicate that.
Yes, they didn't make a very good transition
Who
there.
wrote this paragraph? Just kidding.
Yeah.
They were getting tired and they were like, I'm done.
They should say hemoglobin A1C, however, is still widely used as a marker.
Or just start a new paragraph there.
Start a new paragraph, yes.
Right, because they weren't talking about blood glucose, they were talking about ketones.
Ketones.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I think, thank you.
Well, and then they were talking about finger prick meters, but then they okay. All right. Now we've got it.
Yes.
Okay. So the time and range target is calibrated for people on high carbohydrate diets, as is evident from the relaxed targets for those considered to be more at risk of hypoglycemic episodes. Patients on a ketogenic diet should easily reach and exceed these targets and might want to work within a tighter range, which can then be adjusted to obtain comparison figures for a clinic. Okay, I see what they're saying. It has been mentioned before that even though hypoglycemia risk still exists, the frequency is reduced approximately 5-fold with therapeutic restriction to 75 to 90 grams of carbohydrate per day. Time in range target setting is a decision of clinical judgment made between clinicians and patients.
So it's basically just a metric to track.
Yeah.
Yeah. You should be within that particular range for at least 70% of the time. And that would be for somebody who's not necessarily on a ketogenic diet. Someone on a ketogenic diet, they're recommended a tighter range because the blood sugar spikes are much more stable. So, okay.
Yeah. So that's okay. That's what I want to make sure that I'm not overlooking something because I blasted right past that. I didn't even realize, the earlier part with the HbA1c. So I think I'm good on what. Okay, so conclusion. We have looked at the evidence for the use of therapeutic carbohydrate restriction in type 1 diabetes. While the evidence for therapeutic carbohydrate restriction is compelling, all healthcare providers should be aware of the pitfalls that may occur. This lifestyle should be offered to all type 1 diabetic patients as a part of their treatment, and patients who are already following this lifestyle should continue to be supported and not discouraged. Some guidelines are offered to help patients on this journey.
All right.
All right.
That is the end of the type 1 diabetes section.
Yeah, so next week will be polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Yeah, PCOS, which I had for years and decades, and this was while all my kids are adopted.
So many women have it now. It's unbelievable.
Oh yeah, it's
very. I know a lot of people who do.
Yeah, and I didn't know a lot back then, but I do know that I was eating a lot of carbs. Yeah. So, but I am definitely going to have to take a 2-week break.
Yeah.
So we are moving next week to our property. And then the following Tuesday will be a travel day for me because I'm going to be in South Carolina with Healing Humanity for our meetup. And then Tuesday will be my travel day home. It's going to be kind of sad because I'm going to leave and this house and come home to the other house. They're going to move while I'm gone. They're going to officially do the official move. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I'm packing and I'm making sure everything's packed and ready to go. So the house is already like, really disheveled and, but we still have pictures on the wall. So kind of, it's like we've been packing up all the cabinets, and the movers are going to shrink wrap like dressers and stuff. And so like we don't have to unload all of the stuff
Oh,
out of
that's good.
and everything. Yeah. But my closet, my walk-in closet, we have just like I can't believe how many clothes we have
Right.
because we narrowed it down. We said, okay, what clothes are we going to need for the next 2 weeks? And that's what we narrowed it down to. And like the closet is empty and I've got like a zillion hangers. Like, why do we have so many clothes? It's just too much. So I'm hoping that when we get back and we're going to put everything in the garage because we're having all the floors redone. And then my daughter and I are going to go through and we're going to only bring things in the house that we really feel like we're going to use and
Mhm.
then get rid of the rest. So it'll be a big purging project.
Well, I'm getting new floors put in March. And
Nice.
so I'm using this opportunity to purge a lot of stuff too. And it's like moving really because you have to pack up anything that sits on the
Right.
floor. Like they'll move furniture for you, but you still like if you have like knickknacks or something, you have to
Right.
pack those away. If you have just smaller things on the floor, you have like a basket with magazines in it, let's say, you would have to move that, stuff like that.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
they'll move the bigger furniture for you. But it makes you really stop and look at just what you have and do I really need all this crap? I mean, I
Yeah.
don't really have that much stuff anymore. I did start purging about 10 years ago. I started kind of getting rid of stuff steadily. And then a couple years ago, I sort of I joke and say I guilted him into it, but my son helped me get rid of a bunch of stuff. I mean, like 2 big dually truckloads full of stuff that I had in my little storage shed out back. But so I've gotten rid of a lot, but I still have quite a bit too. And it really makes you stop and think when you're trying to clear everything that sits on the floor. You're just like,
Oh,
wow.
yeah. Like, why do we have all this stuff?
Like shoes. And
Oh my gosh.
I'm not even really a shoe person, I don't think. I mean, I'm not like, oh my God, these new shoes. I'm not really, but I do have a collection of Chuck Taylors
Yeah.
and as an example. So it's like, wow, do I really need all this? Makes you think.
Yeah. No, we've got so many shoes. We keep our shoes in the garage, because I mean we live in Washington State. And so we take our shoes off. We have our house shoes and we have our outside shoes. We don't track things into the house.
Mhm.
But it's like we have so many shoes. And so I'm gonna pick out one pair that is gonna be mine for the next couple of weeks and everything else is gonna get packed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I feel you, Lynn. When we moved from Hawaii, everything left a month before us.
oh wow.
So we had to figure out what we needed for just a month, and we ended up leaving Hawaii with 4 suitcases.
Yeah.
And that was it because everything had been shipped. So it was difficult. And we took the opportunity when we moved to get rid of I think
Mhm.
4 or 5 truckloads of stuff went to
Yeah.
the thrift store because
Well, think about it. When you travel, you can live out of a suitcase, right?
yep,
And you do just
Mhm.
fine.
yep,
So So that's what we're gonna do is we're gonna be like, okay, let's fit whatever we're gonna leave whatever we can fit into a suitcase,
yep.
and everything else is getting packed.
So exciting.
It's
I
exciting.
know. I'm so happy for you. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So next week I'm gonna do a walk through. Once we close, I'm gonna go there and I'm gonna videotape a walkthrough because I haven't done that yet.
Yay. Can't
And
wait.
Yeah, so you guys are going to see just how crazy this house is.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And it's going to be, yeah, with all its obtuse and acute angles and no right angles, and it's 1970s shag carpet, and
Oh,
it's
wow.
popcorn ceilings, and yeah, Chris crazy. But yeah,
Okay.
definitely do a before video, and
Yeah.
then just kind of video record as we go with all the different, improvements that we make. So all
Awesome.
righty. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. It's been great. It's been a great discussion. We're glad you're here. And so it'll be 3 weeks before we meet
Mhm.
again, and we'll pick up with PCOS.
Yep.
All righty.